Hello and welcome to another episode of Community Update. I am Promise Okot. Now, Muslims have lived in Canada since 1871 and the first mosque was established in 1938. Islam in Canada is practiced mostly by the immigrants and their descendants from Muslim majority countries. In the studio today, we have Imam Yafa, who is a prominent leader of that community, and he joins me here in the studio to chat about Islam. It's good to have you in the studio.
Good to have you.
Right, before we get deep into this chat, tell us a little bit about yourself, your congregation, and how you've been faring so far.
My name is Muhammad Yafa. I am originally from West Africa, and I've been in Canada for 23 years. And since coming here, the moment I came here, I tried to look for the mosque, and I have an Islamic studies background as one of the things that I bring, and I got attached to the Muslim community, and together with many people, it has come up by the grace of God. We have built it. It's the effort of many after the grace of Almighty God. And the Muslim community has really evolved, it has changed, it has grown. Like you said, majority of those who practice Islam are from Muslim majority countries. And as bad as war is, sometimes it has propelled the immigration of people to Canada who are Muslims. So the community has grown. When I newly came here, we had two mosques. One is in Dartmouth, which is still there. It's the oldest in HRM. And then there was another one on Chubuktu Road. It was just a historic property, a small building. And then the Center for Islamic Development came up, which is now on Ruby Street. It used to be just a small place where youth gathered. And after that, we got another one. There is one now in Larutech West. There is another one on Bedford Highway. There is one in Fairview, and also across the province. There is one in New Glasgow. There is one in Wolfville. There is one in Antigonish. And the oldest mosque actually is in Truro, Bible Hill.
This is very interesting because before we started the interview, you talked about all these places that you've expanded into, and that's something to learn. But I guess I missed the point. What country exactly in Africa did you?
I'm from Sierra Leone.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes.
And that's like about 23 years or so that you've been here?
I've been here for 23 years.
What has it been like? What has changed since then?
Oh my God, everything has changed. I came here, John Crichton was the Prime Minister. ISAN, which is the Immigrant Settlement Association of Nova Scotia, used to be MISA, and it changed to another name, and now there's a third name. Godigan Street used to be really where you'll find a lot of black people. They thrived. It's now gentrified. It has changed. The library you see on Spring Garden Road was just the building opposite it. A lot has changed. Clayton Park wasn't this built. So many things have happened in front of my eyes. And the Muslim community was small. Right. We used to go all the way to Windsor to buy meat. There's a farmer there who provided zabiha, which is slaughtered in the halal way, employed a Muslim. Now you have halal even in Sobeys. So a lot has really changed, and mostly in a very good way.
I like that part. Yeah. So I also believe that there are possibilities that you probably had some pushback when you started out here. Has anything changed in that regard as well? I mean, what level of acceptance have you enjoyed so far?
Well, there has been a lot of education and knowledge about Islam. There has been a lot of interaction in which Muslims coming here and also contributing to society, having businesses that are beneficial to everybody, and interacting positively. You have a lot of Muslim professors in the university, for example. You have a lot of Muslim doctors in the hospitals. You have many Muslim women going around with the hijab. You have now, like I said, you can see the halal food sections in the big stores. So things have really changed. despite that, of course, there are always people who are not very happy because we have this homophobia. We are afraid of others when we don't know them, when we are ignorant about them. So we do face sometimes it's passive aggression.
Right.
Sometimes you find real ignorance. Sometimes you hear questions that just are trying to tell you that you don't belong here.
Yeah.
Other times you face direct aggression. So we've seen, for example, buses. My daughter and other girls in our schools have said that bus drivers just drive by them sometimes when they're trying to catch the bus. It's not very common, but it does happen.
That's certainly, it's sad to hear this. Yeah. That's certainly something we don't encourage and we do not support. But given the situation, how have you been able to deal with this? And for those who probably new immigrants here from Africa, they're probably wondering, how do we navigate through all of this? What message would you be giving to them? Well,
there are a few things. So, some things you can't help. Some people you have to ignore. Sometimes you have to ignore people. Sometimes you have to educate them. Some other times you just have to hold your grounds and do what you have to do and just ignore the noise around you. And if it is continuous and it sustains for a while, especially if it's coming from big corporations and so on, or workplace, sometimes you take it even high as the Human Rights Commission to teach a lesson that, we all belong here. This is a multicultural country.
Do you work with those groups like Human Rights Commission to address issues like that?
Well, we have had cases that have gone to the Human Rights Commission for sure. Okay. Not very many, but if someone feels like there is no way out except to address it at that level. Right. That has happened within the community. Generally, the community is very, very reserved, want to stay away from these things. I remember one time a very, very hateful comment and drawings were made on the mosque, on Chibokto Road, and things were thrown in the center on Roby Street. And each time we just say, we try not to even report it because we don't. Sometimes reporting may sound like you want confrontation and so on, so you want to keep your peace and so on. Right,
I get that.
Yeah.
Let's get into the meat of today's chat. This has to do with the al-Filtr, and I believe that you are also getting ready for it. Tell us, how is this celebrated? Because we all look forward to this.
Yes. Al-Filtr means the anniversary of breaking the fast. So Fitr means breaking, and Eid means an anniversary. So Muslims have two. This one is the one that comes immediately after fasting 29 or 30 days. And yes, we are preparing for it. We are very excited about it. Yeah. Now, the last 10 days of Ramadan is when we are encouraged by God in the Quran and by the Prophet Muhammad, according to his practice, to really up your level of worship, to make lots of prayers, to try to live this month as a better person. So the promise of being someone of higher faith, this is when you try to fulfill it. This is when the race ends. So you want to end on a very high note. Yeah. So the mosques are very full right now in the night, and people go and do their regular Ramadan prayer, go home and spend 2 hours and come again and pray for another 2 or 3 hours and wait for the morning prayers. So it's a hype right now in worship. And at the same time, people are trying to buy gifts, to buy food, to get ready for the Eid itself.
Right.
And when the Eid is here, it's a big day, it's a big celebration. It's the first day in 29 or 30 days, if you've been fasting, to eat in the morning. Right. And you are encouraged to have breakfast, just to make that point before you go for the actual prayer.
How is it different from what you do back in Africa?
So there are certain things that are just universal, they are global.
Right.
Like the rituals, waking up in the morning and preparing yourself, you take a shower, put on nice clothing. That's how the Prophet advised us. Preferably colorful clothing. Right. Fridays is white, on Eid days colorful. And then go and do the prayer in a place where everybody gathers. So not everybody in their mosque this time. It's everybody meeting at one place and celebrating. And you leave. Over here, it's a little bit, after that, it becomes a bit sad because sometimes people go back to work, especially those who cannot ask for time off, right? So some people go back to work, and even sometimes some students go back to exams, which we're actually trying to raise sensitivity around. Okay. Back home is completely different. Mostly in my country, you have Muslims and Christians.
Right.
And this is a holiday for everybody, just like Christmas is.
Okay.
So everybody celebrates. So the Muslims cook and distribute food, and everybody's looking forward to it.
I wish it was a public holiday here. Some of us would probably be very happy about that.
I wish the same too.
Right.
But from our Christian friends here
Yes.
in Halifax, just 2 nights ago, I had one family made a lot of food, some beans, some cassava, a lot of things, and brought it to our house for us to break our fast.
Right.
So they honor that, they know the tradition. And also when Eid comes, we try to cook, we cook a lot. It's a lot of cooking, and then pass the food around, and people will have food. And back home, it is just an open buffet.
We are jumping.
Everybody comes and has food, and then the children go dressed nicely, getting presents.
Yeah, Imam, your faith, as much as I know, preaches peace.
Of course.
And I believe this is a good time for those who are ardent followers of the Prophet to be able to follow suit and talk about peace. And we currently have wars all over the place. What would be your message at this time? Because I believe it's not far from peace and hope for those who are hopeless and for those who are seeking for peace in our warring countries.
It is sad. It is sad that humanity always resorts to this to get what they want. People do this all the time. There is hardly any time of the year that passes without somebody being killed. And people are using this as an opportunity to sell weapons or to gain power, to insert themselves over, to do their control run and so on. So it's a sad situation. And according to Islam, we are sent on the face of this earth actually to take care of ourselves and to take care of the earth. And you cannot force somebody. For example, the most important thing in a Muslim's life is their faith. That's the most important. There are 5 major things in your life. It's your faith, your life, your mind, your honor, and your wealth. These are what Islam is there for. But you can't even force somebody to accept that.
Right.
And if somebody accepts it, you can't even force them to practice, just to keep the peace. And the Quran says, even if when you are engaged, when there is no way except to engage in fight or war, it says, فَإِن جَنَحُوا لِلسَّلْمِ فَاجْنَحْ لَهَا. If your enemy or your opponent reclines to peace, you must recline to peace. Even if they hit you hardly first and then say, I surrender, I'm not fighting any longer, you don't have an option but to stop fighting. Because you're only fighting to stop fighting. You're only fighting to stop aggression. You're not fighting to win necessarily. So the message, I think, from all religion and from all people of sense is for us to come together and create a better world. Our children are growing up hearing this, seeing it, seeing blood, hearing bombs, reading it, seeing it on the television, and it is the worst thing that we can do to ourselves. It is really senseless. And Islam, the meaning of the word itself is peaceful submission to the will of God. Just like everything in you submits,
right.
Your heart submits, it does its work by the command of God. We are the ones that have intellect. So we are told to use this intellect to choose what is right, instead of that which is wrong.
Yeah.
So my message will be your message. It will be the message of anybody who belongs to a divine way of life, or even a sensible way of life, is to try 2 ways to peace. Is to resist the temptation of revenge. So don't feed that sense of revenge. And is to size yourself with humility. So you don't feel you're better than somebody, you must dominate them. And thirdly is to tamper your greed, because that leads you to fighting. So I think universally these are messages that are shared.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I mean, that means a lot, because this is the kind of message I believe we should be preaching at this time. But as we wrap up, Imam, tell us, especially for the group who are non-believers of your faith, there have been some negative, perception and misconception about your faith. As you wrap up, I wanted to speak to that group, because we have a mix of both Muslims, Christians, and people of other faiths. Speak to them and tell them what it is and what you expect them to do on the 21st?
Yeah, so it's to learn. You know, so in the Quran it says, يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا. It says, "O people," God is speaking to us, "we have created you, royal we, have created all of you from a male and a female, and made you into tribes and nations and peoples, so that you may bring experiences and know one another." So you and I are the same. You just happen to be from somewhere where I'm not, but you bring a lot from that I will never gain because I wasn't there. And I have a lot that you'll never have because you are not where I have come through. So if we meet and have conversations, there will be a lot of understanding. There will be an elevation with humanity. So the first thing we must do is to learn instead of just listening to stereotype. We have to know also the news is something for sale. They are marketing. They are not necessarily seeking the truth. They are seeking what sensationalizes people and captures their attention and keep them glued to the news or to the television. You should go beyond that and talk to your neighbor and talk to your friend and learn about them. The first thing we should really do is to learn about Islam. If you learn about Islam, many scholars have said that it is impossible for anybody with senses to read about Islam and not get fascinated. It is just impossible, and I'm putting the challenge out there, really. Read the Quran. Like people say, the Quran says, Quran has no mercy. It says, kill them wherever you find them, right? Which is a false statement. It is false. It is a statement that fits within a context that's taken out. It's completely different when you put it within the context. You don't even have to go too far. When you read from the Quran, the beginning of the Quran, the first thing you read is Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. And that is 114 chapters of the Quran. Only one doesn't start with it. But there is another verse like that in another chapter. So 114 times, that combination of in the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful is mentioned. So if you actually take the time and read and talk to your neighbors and come to the mosque. Like really, the mosque is open. Now, one thing about the mosque is we don't even know who's coming in. It's an open space. Right. You show up, nobody will ask you any question. Come and see. It's just 4 walls and people are dedicating themselves to prayer. And look at the fasting. The fasting is to have faith, because when you are fasting, it gives you time to contemplate. I say the blood that comes down to digest will stay in the mind for you to reflect, right? Because there is no food. And so when that contemplation makes you conscious of God, but also it makes you conscious of humanity and your surrounding. Right. Muslims are most generous in Ramadan. Now, here is a secret. If you ever want something from a Muslim, go in the month of Ramadan. They're more likely...
I'm going to start with you
No
today.
No problem. They're more likely to respond positively.
Right.
You feel the pang of starvation that other people do, those who are deprived, and you're more likely to help them. That is why if you cannot fast a day, what you must do is to feed a poor person in lieu of that day, right? Okay. Because this is all about bringing people to equality. And also, at the end of Ramadan, every soul is supposed to give a charity of a meal. So I have 6 members in my family. So I have to give 6 meals, and it goes to people who cannot afford, so that they can also celebrate at the end of Ramadan. So the Prophet said, so you can save them from begging on this day, at least, right? So this is the message of Islam in short, and this is how fasting comes to highlight that message.
I can't thank you enough for coming to the studio and having this chat with us, because I think our viewers would have learned a lot from this chat.
Thank you
so much, Imam.
Thank you, appreciate it.
And that has been Imam Yafa. He is a leader in the Muslim community here in Nova Scotia. He's also the resident Imam at the Center for Islamic Development in Halifax. Don't forget to check out other episodes and subscribe to this channel for more updates. I am Promise Okoy, and I will see you soon.